Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee on this middle of the week Wednesday. As we've got so much sunshine out there today, seems like we are far enough away from the strong upper low that has been driving everything in terms of the circulation in the Northeast that we are dry enough that we have fairly cloud-free skies along the coast, maybe some clouds in the mix inland, and temperatures are responding. They're climbing up into the upper 50s and low 60s. As you can see, these are midday readings here. Low 60s across southern New Jersey, even some middle 60s popping up here and there down into Maryland, and you get back to low 60s as we move northward through Pennsylvania, and 50s as you go into the northeastern part of the state and in through the Hudson Valley and in through Connecticut. So so far so good in terms of what we're looking at, and with respect to what's going on elsewhere in the country, the big area of severe weather risk today is in the southern plains on up through the middle Mississippi Valley. You see this large area of marginal risk with inside of that we have slight risk of severe, and then this small area of enhanced risk in northern Texas, in the eastern part of northern Texas, and into southwestern Oklahoma. Again, an enhanced risk of severe weather and a general risk of thunderstorms from a small area in the mid-Atlantic states going all the way back through the Rockies and a little patch up in the northwest in Washington state and northernmost Oregon. So when we look at the satellite loop this morning, we've got this upper air storm still sitting here in southeastern Canada. It's going to gradually drop southeastward to off the New England coast, but it's keeping the flow generally dry and northwest, so that's good. The clouds, as you can see on the loop, are kind of thinning out as they approach the coastline. A little subsidence going on, a little drying in the atmosphere. And here's the next weather system coming out of the southern plains. This is going to be the one that's going to bring a soaking rain here for Saturday, and I think at least into the very first part of Sunday, Mother's Day. Out in the west, as we look at the satellite there, here's the this is the upper air system that's going to drive that weekend rain in the east. And because of the block, you'll notice that it's just been kind of spinning away here, only making gradual progress going eastward, kind of waiting for something to happen in terms of the block breaking down or a bit of a kicker from behind. And we do have a storm system right here off the coast of the Pacific Northwest that looks like it wants to kick this along. So we're going to see how this all progresses today. There's probably going to be some bands of showers and thunderstorms out in the west, and here it is. This was bringing it into Southern California. Most of it moved into the southwest yesterday. It's probably going to be a little bit further east today, but it is going to be a producer of some pretty hefty cells in some places, and it's part of the whole complex that's creating that enhanced area of severe weather risk today. So it's all of this. Doesn't look like too much on the radar right now in the early part of the day, but it will show up later on. And we have a few showers and some thunderstorms across eastern Nebraska and Iowa. Not too much happening across the Northeast. We may actually be pretty quiet today, other than the odd shower that you see here up in upstate New York with a little upper air disturbance. I'm thinking that there'll be very little in the way of shower development this afternoon, maybe in one or two isolated spots. So what's happening going forward? Well, we'll look at the NAM model because that'll take us at least into Saturday afternoon. Here's the upper low now as it moves off the New England coast, and you notice it doesn't really fly out of there as we move through Thursday and into Friday. Now here's that system from the southwest now that comes out of the southern plains. It is at this point that we finally get some room. That system off New England moves out. This one takes control. And the question in my mind is going to be, how does this phase, or do they phase? And, that's going to make a huge difference in terms of what the weather outcome is going to be around here for the weekend. I think Saturday definitely, to me, looks like a day that we're going to see an all-day rain. It's a question of whether we get some coastal development out of this, and do we wind up with rain continuing through most of Sunday, or does it end early Sunday morning? And when we look at the NAM surface, there's low pressure that comes in during the overnight Friday night, Friday daytime, right through the next 3 days. Wednesday, the rest of today, Thursday, Friday day side look good, other than arriving clouds later on Friday. And then rain starts to come in during the early morning hours of Saturday, and you start to see low pressure moving off the Delaware coast. So it's really after this time frame that we're going to be looking at some of the overnight models, overnight weather models. When we look at the GFS for the same time frame, we're waiting for the new one to come out now. It's not out far enough. But this is sort of how it matches up with the NAM. Now, remember, these NAM shows you radar echoes, and this shows you actual measurable precip. And you'll see what it does here overnight Saturday night. It produces a fairly large area of heavy rains for northern New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England, and the Hudson Valley and northeastern Pennsylvania on the order of 2 to 4 inches, if this is right. But one thing that was different from the overnight run than some of the other runs is that this low just kind of gets ejected along. And that's going to be key, because if it does get kicked out, instead of dropping southward and sort of milling around for 24 hours, it gets kicked away to the northeast because the block completely breaks down. So this would argue that there probably will be a lot of clouds left over on Sunday afternoon, but the bulk of the rain, except for perhaps along the immediate coast, Long Island, southeastern Connecticut, central and eastern Long Island, southeastern Connecticut, southeastern New England, that the rain might be over with by mid-morning in most places. So that's something to consider, because if it does get kicked out away, things might get better by the afternoon. And then we have some drier air coming into next week. There is going to be an attempt to warm it up for a couple of days, but I'm not so sure how successful it may be. That weather front, the warm front here, as we move through the middle of next week, is very close. I mean, it's kind of like right on top of us. So, I just wonder whether there's going to be, how warm will it get? I mean, I think for a day or two, we certainly could see temperatures up into the 70s. That's a no-brainer this time of year. Just a normal air mass will produce that. And then the GFS wants to have another high building down for later next week into next weekend, but we'll see if that is going to indeed be the case. I'm going to go out to the west now really fast, and we'll take a look and see what that west has to offer us as we back away. And of course, with this low coming out of the southern plains, at least we're seeing some precipitation in parts of the Rockies and central and southern plains and on east, and another system for the weekend for the Pacific Northwest. Some of that moisture tries to drop into California and into Nevada. Another system comes in around Tuesday of next week. That has also some success with rain or snows down through the Sierra Nevadas and down up into parts of central California. You see here also through a good chunk of Utah. The northern Rockies get into it. And then low pressure late next week develops in eastern Colorado. Now, doesn't really do too much with that other than produce some scattered precip. But then that becomes a bigger system as it moves eastward. We're at the point now in this time frame, we're at May 20th, and we're certainly at the point now where weather systems should be moving along in a more progressive fashion, that is going west to east, so that we get at least some warm-ups every couple of days instead of prolonged cool weather. We'll try and verify that looking at the upper air. And I'm going to put it on the wide view so we can take a look. Again, the block is going to be gone before too long. And here it is now. Okay, it's just so obvious up here, the Greenland block as it moves into Canada, but it quickly disappears. Now, oftentimes, just want to point out, it is oftentimes when we have that happening, when we have a radical change in pattern like that, when we go from one extreme kind of back to the neutral line to go in the other direction, and it's sort of snapping the rubber band, the atmosphere responds to that, and it's responding to it by this deep trough in the east, and you also have this troughing coming in the west with this ridge in the middle and the ridge offshore. But it's all of this energy that it allows for room for that to sort of pile on. So you get this negative, what we call the negatively tilted trough. The axis of the trough runs northwest to southeast, which is basically lifting all the energy up and around, as opposed to just kind of swinging it from west to east in a rather nondescript way. But here we have, here's our jet, here's our ridge, and with the ridges on both sides, there is room here for a system of some magnitude. But, do they phase? Do they not phase? This is a bit of an unphased look to it. Two separate streams that kind of stay separate until the system is offshore and well offshore when you get this one upper low off the New England coast. So at that point, you might have one intense low, but it'll be out in the ocean. But notice it moves along, and the ridge comes back into the eastern part of the United States, or at least tries to. There's still some semblance of a cool flow coming from Canada into the northeast through the middle of next week, but it's kind of borderline because of where the ridge is. So we're going to have to watch to see which one of those such things wins out. And then, of course, you've got this deep system that's coming into the west later next week to keep an eye on. But the pattern definitely is giving us a bit of a different look to it. And going forward, the other thing is there seems to be a tendency for troughing in the east. So this is going to be pretty interesting here if this is right. This upper low that forms in the southeastern part of the U.S. and the southeastern Gulf states toward the latter part of May. Whether it's there or not remains to be seen. But something like that, when we start to get into the latter part of May, going into June, and you see these upper lows that sort of get dropped down and left behind. Sometimes they can be big rain producers. So we'll have to see if that's the case here, or if this is early, let's call it early model noise. But something definitely to perhaps pay attention to as we go through the latter part of the month. And by the way, sometimes, I just want to mention it, sometimes these upper lows do wind up finding themselves off the southeast coast of the United States or off the Florida coast over the warm tropical waters. And when we get deeper into hurricane season, you can get these cold core systems to generally separate from the cold coreness of the atmosphere and become warm core systems by warming up and making a transition over into a tropical storm. And usually that process takes several to many days to happen. But that is something that does happen on occasion as we go into June, and particularly as you go deeper into the tropical storm season. But sometimes in June, you can have these systems cutting off down in the subtropics where the water is kind of borderline in terms of the water temperatures. And under the right conditions, you can see them warm up and become tropical systems. All right, so just wanted to throw that out there because, we've got another 21 days before hurricane season starts. And pretty soon it will be somewhat the focus of our attention. Have a great day, everybody. Website posts on meteorologistjoechaffe.com. Angry Ben has the New York City perspective on nycweathernow.com. And you can download my app and subscribe to my forecast for just 99 cents a month for New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Connecticut, Hudson Valley, and Eastern Pennsylvania. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. That is absolutely free, and you get notified every time a new video comes up, which is at least once a day. All right, everybody. See you on Thursday.